Okay, everybody, to give us a little additional freedom perspective, a focus on liberty at a time when the country's liberty seems to be in tremendous peril, we are joined by Glenn Jacobs. He is the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, also familiar to many of you, I'm sure, as the WWE wrestler formerly known as Kane. He joins us now. Glenn, great to have you on, sir.
Hey, thanks, Buck. I appreciate it.
So, my friend, first, let's start with Tennessee, then we'll take this nationwide. We're in the midst of this lockdown still. Some states are reopening a little bit. I've read a little that Nashville has had some cases, and there's been a bit of a scare there. But how are you guys doing statewide? How has your governor been in this process? Tell me, let's talk about how Tennessee's handling COVID, then we'll talk about the national response.
Sure. Tennessee did not go nearly as far as many other states did with executive orders. There was a safer at home order issued, but it wasn't like California and some other places where we see really draconian enforcement. Some restaurants and bars were closed, and now they're back at limited capacity, and some other businesses were closed. But overall, we didn't go nearly as far as other states. And we're starting to move in the other direction now. We're starting to open things back up, and we probably don't get as much press as, say, Georgia did when they did it, but we're right there with them as far as what we're doing. And compared to everybody else, I guess it's actually pretty aggressive opening businesses up and just allowing people to get back out.
We're speaking to Glenn Jacobs. He's the mayor of Knox County. Mayor Jacobs, well, the country, it seems to me, had this panic reaction, and it was based in. And look, there were a couple of weeks there where I was like, well, I guess, if we're really facing what they're saying we're facing and the way that they're telling us it's going to happen, we don't seem to have a lot of choice. But we've gone from 15 days to stop the spread to now 50 some odd days to stop the spread, although there is some, as you've said, some reopening in some places. Have you been surprised by the speed and the ease with which so many people seem to have relieved or allowed the state to relieve them of their liberties in this situation?
I really have. And it's really, it's disturbing because, as you said, it went from an idea of flattening the curve so that the healthcare system wouldn't be overloaded, which is something I think that we can all look at and say, okay, that's reasonable. Although, again, I don't think that the government should be mandating that people stay inside or mandating a lot of things that went on. But you can understand for a short period of time, as you said, 15 days to flatten the curve. Okay. Well, then it went to, well, actually now we can't go back out and we can't open businesses until there's a vaccine. It's like, well, wait a second. You guys said one thing. Now you're saying something else. And you've gone, if you actually read what like Neil Ferguson from the Imperial College of London said with their report, which was the one that caused everyone to completely freak out, which was 2.2 million deaths in America. They said that if you're going to do a lockdown route, that can be up to 18 months. And I was going, wait a second. We'll be in a stone age if we go on an 18-month lockdown. That's just not possible. And even Ferguson, in his report, acknowledged that. And the thing is, too, we have these models, and the models keep on changing. And, of course, the models are only as good as the data, and they don't predict the future. I don't think that they ever really should have been used for public policy purposes. They should have been used for epidemiological purposes and look at the spread. And certainly policymakers maybe should have taken them into account. But that became the driving force behind all these policy decisions. And then the problem with that, Buck, is as an elected official, I have to look at this big picture, this big puzzle of the community's overall well-being and health. And certainly this plays into that, but you also have to think about the economic health of the community. And, for the folks out there that think, well, you're putting profits over people. No, if you don't have a healthy economy, you're not going to have healthy people. And what we've done now is we've concentrated so much on the public health aspect that we've forgotten about everything else. And then we don't even know if this lockdown strategy is going to work. When you look at these statistics from various countries and compare those, we don't know that it actually works, and then we don't know what the arc of the disease looks like because of things like herd immunity. And if you have a lockdown and people go back out, well, then are you going to have a second wave? There's a lot of unanswered questions. And we've just said, okay, it's fine. Just government, do whatever you need to do. Protect us, and we will trust you. And that's a very dangerous road to be on, and history shows us that.
We're speaking to Glenn Jacobs. He's the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. Mayor Jacobs, the debt is also something that, I mean, at least when I came into conservative media about a decade ago, there was a lot of concern about the debt. Well, it's gotten a lot worse since then. And what we see going on now is truly unprecedented. You're going to end up with, I mean, no one really knows right now, but trillions of dollars of additional spending. And also, I think, and this is the part of this that people haven't factored in, trillions of dollars less in tax receipts and revenue across the board, too. Right. So we're going to be spending a whole lot more money as a government, and the government at the end of the year is going to be taking in a whole lot less money. So it's going to be a gulf that's wider than people even recognize. How do you see that pressure playing out in the economy, and how worried are you about the prospect of just the United States being in the neighborhood of $30 trillion in debt by the end of this year, which some are saying is possible?
I'm very worried about that. In fact, I'm much more worried about that than I am the direct impact of COVID-19. COVID-19 is a serious public health issue. And it's something certainly that needed to be addressed. But what's happened now with the way that we've reacted is we've caused an economic collapse. That's going to end up bringing in a monetary and fiscal crisis, which is going to cause political upheaval at some point. As you said, we're going to come out of this with $30 trillion in debt. In 2008, when we had the Great Recession, the country had about $10 trillion in debt. And you look at what was done then, and this was a huge event, it pales in comparison to what's going on right now as far as the amount of money the federal government's spending. We should all keep in mind the federal government doesn't have any money. The Federal Reserve can print money, and that's what's happening right now. And that's going to have a deleterious effect on the dollar, purchasing power of the dollar, and the strength of the dollar. Currently, we're in Bretton Woods 2 is the world monetary system. I think we can all assume at this point Bretton Woods 2 is dead, and something else is going to replace that. None of us knows what that is. But that's what I see. Is I see in the end the monetary situation, the fiscal situation. Currently, the federal government pays about $400 billion a year in debt service on $23, $24 trillion in debt. That's going to go up even higher. They're trying to offset a deflationary spiral by throwing all this money into the economy. It's going to take a while for that to happen because people just aren't going to spend money. The money circulation, the velocity of money is very low. So inflation is going to be very low. And economists and the Fed, they're just going to keep on saying, throw more money, throw more money, throw more money. So you actually have an inflationary bomb in the economy. And when things start picking back up and that inflation starts picking back up because of the huge amount of debt service that the federal government has to pay, they're not going to be able to raise interest rates like they have in the past. So long term, over the next, I don't know how many years, however long it takes, the U.S., unfortunately, is going to be in a very precarious situation.
Speaking of Glenn Jacobs, mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. And Mayor, to that end, I want to know what the picture is for small businesses. I mean, your county has hundreds of thousands of residents, so obviously a lot of businesses that are shut down right now must be struggling mightily. I know the Paycheck Protection Program, we had Monica Crowley from Treasury on my show earlier in the week, on one of my shows earlier in the week, talking about what PPP has done. But even she admitted, look, it's a government program. It's not perfect, but it's helping. But what are you hearing from small business owners, and what are your concerns about the ability of both businesses currently shuttered to reopen and people who have lost, as we know, 20 some odd million now have officially lost jobs, probably more like 30 million overall. But of the people who have lost jobs in your state, that they'll be able to get those jobs back?
That's a huge issue. Small businesses are going to be the ones that hurt the most by this. The large businesses, the national chains, they have the revenue and the capital to survive something like this. Small businesses don't. And even now what we're doing in Knox County and the state of Tennessee, we have the gradual phased opening plan, which is, of course, better than nothing. But still, now businesses have had, in some cases, no revenue for a month or 6 weeks. And now they're going to get maybe half, maybe 25% of their normal revenue. Businesses can't survive like that. And again, especially the small businesses, which are going to be harmed the worst. And those are the backbone of our economy. They're the backbone of our local economy. They're the backbone of the national economy. And then when you think about people coming back to work, an issue with now the federal government trying to help people is the fact that in some cases they're making more money on unemployment than an employer can afford to pay them. So they're going to want to stay on that. And rightfully so, I don't blame them, for as long as they can, which is going to cause another impact in the labor markets. So as you point out, it's the big guys, for the most part. I'm not going to say they're going to be okay, because we've seen some bankruptcies in big companies, but they're much more prepared and much more equipped to weather this than the small businesses. And of course, the small businesses, that's our neighbors. It's the mom and pop shops that many of us go to and support, and the people that are involved in our community. And it's really a travesty. And one of my messages is always, to the extent that you can and to the extent that you're comfortable, please support your local small business. If you want to see them after all this is over and they're still in business, it's up to us right now to do the most that we can to help support them.
Mayor Glenn Jacobs, thanks so much, sir. I'll be out in Tennessee soon. Hopefully you guys will all be open. We can get a beer.
Look me up, please, Buck. Thank you.
Pandemics have been in the world before, and people survived them. We, of course, could have survived this much better if idiot had done the right thing and listened and heeded all the warnings. There were many, many warnings, and we are all paying for it now. It would have been bad, maybe in some ways, but never like this.
Hey, Robert De Niro thinks that it would have been bad, but it wouldn't have been that bad. But, you know, the idiot who he doesn't like. And, you know, hey, he doesn't like Trump. Why do we have to hear from Robert De Niro about pandemic response? I mean, I'm just wondering, does he know anything other than how to play basically the same character in a bunch of movies? Granted, some very watchable movies. You know, we give credit where it's due here. Casino. Actually, producer Mark, is Casino a better movie or Goodfellas a better movie?
No, I'd say Goodfellas.
Yeah, I think Goodfellas is the right choice there. Casino is a little bit soul crushing. You know, I mean, not that there's not some of that in Goodfellas too, but Casino is like, it gets kind of just too depressing toward the end, I found. You know, it's really, you end up watching the movie, you're just like, oh, humanity is doomed. This is bad. But you know, there's some very, very watchable movies, very good things. I actually think that Meet the Parents is one of his better movies. You know, little Jinxie, little milking the cat, Jinxie.
Yeah, I love those movies.
That's a great great movie. To me, the funniest parts of Meet the Parents were the Jinxie the cat thing. And then also, because I feel like we've all been there before, where we're forced to be in some kind of a competitive environment where you don't really want to compete, but like now people are like, well, why aren't you better at this? And then you kind of turn it up a little bit, and now you're the guy who's trying, you know, it's like you're playing flag football with someone else's family and you're getting thrown in the bushes, and then all of a sudden you try kind of hard and, you know, somebody gets a bloody nose from your elbow and they're like, what's wrong with you? I mean, we've all been there before. I think that it's co-ed sports too, if you're ever in a co-ed sports environment where everyone's kind of like drinking beer and having fun and playing volleyball, and then you like start missing. Anyway, that's what happens in Meet the Parents. The volleyball scene in the pool is amazing. I mean, that's one for the ages, I thought. What's your favorite scene, producer Mark?
Oh, man, that's hard. I mean, I think I'm going to say from Meet the Fockers when Jinxie ends up in the toilet in the RV because the dog shoved him in the toilet.
I haven't even seen Meet the Fockers.
Oh, it's a great continuation. That's why I say it's the Meet the Parents series, because there's a couple of them.
I mean, I think Meet the Parents is the best thing that Ben Stiller ever did, other than There's Something About Mary, which is an amazing movie to go back and watch, just because it's really a time capsule of how much society has changed and what it considers to be acceptable, like for entertainment purposes. There is so much in There's Something About Mary you would never be able to get away with now.
I feel like you can say that about almost every older television show from like the 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, Friends has a lot of Friends makes a lot of LGBTQ community kind of jokes and fat jokes, and there's a lot of stuff even in Friends, which you think is the most saccharine, corporate friendly, sponsor friendly show imaginable. Oh no, there's a lot of stuff. There have actually been articles written by people at Vox and other beta male establishments about how Friends is we shouldn't be celebrating it anymore. I was watching Disney with the Snow Princess. We were watching the Aristocats, and as one does. So now you guys all know why I've been on a Disney kick too. It's because Snow Princess and she likes to watch Disney. She likes Disney films. So we watched The Lion King recently. Lion King's great. Still moves really well too.
It's still great, even though it's old.
Yeah, it's it's great. Oh, the old Disney stuff is fantastic. The newer Disney stuff is not really as good. But we're watching even the Aristocats, and I've never seen this warning before. Disney puts up in the like when they tell you that in a movie that there's nudity, strong language, whatever. They had a warning about outdated cultural stereotypes. That now, you can't have outdated cultural stereotypes in movies or you'll get in trouble. So, for example, the Siamese cats in Lady and the Tramp, I think they cut that out of some versions of it now. You can't do that. So, I'm just saying, even Disney, even the old Disney movies, you can't get away with. And a lot of the old cartoons, I think people would have a problem with now too. But anyway, all right. So let's get back into the mix here on this. I think it's funny that, hey, let's hear from Robert De Niro. What do you think about the pandemic, Robert? Oh, I think if the idiot wasn't running things, that's great. That's really, really so very helpful. Oh, and they also wanted to hear from Al Gore. The fact that they almost made this guy president of the United States is appalling, and they really tried. He came very close. Play 14.
And to take your medical advice from a right-wing talk show host who brings some questionable medical advice into the Oval Office instead of listening to the Centers for Disease Control. And as was said earlier, where is the Centers for Disease Control? They're the ones that should be having these daily briefings. Where is the FDA? Why were they bullied into opening the floodgates and letting all of these crummy tests out there that we now know most of them don't work? This is a disgrace. The entire handling of this matter has been an utter and complete disgrace.
Was the CDC bullied into putting the test out? No, you moron. The CDC put the tests out because they're an incompetent federal organization that gets billions of dollars usually to tell people to make sure their kids eat enough vitamins. The CDC does a lot of worthless stuff. All you do is do Google search on CDC guidance and things. There's, children should get, more fruits and veggies in their diet every day. I mean, that's what the CDC is often spending its time doing. Certainly not preparing for pandemic disease response. They were caught napping and then some on this one, but thanks for hearing from Al Gore. Oh, my gosh. Democrats. Al Gore, Joe Biden, Kerry. People they put forward to be president. So many of them are just clownish losers. All right, team, I mentioned Operation Gideon, the failed overthrow of Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro at the top of the show. This is a real thing that happened that people are not paying very much attention to. It involves some former U.S. special operators, a whole bunch of money, some shady activists and other folks behind the scenes. What happened here? What went wrong? How could this have been done properly? We've got our friend Jack Carr to answer all this now. He's a former Navy SEAL and best-selling author of the latest book in his Terminal List series, Savage Son, which, Jack, I am listening to on audiobook, by the way. True story. Very much enjoying it. Although the turncoat CIA analyst, I hope there's some good CIA analysts in there, too. Like, some of the nerds are nice. Some of the nerds are patriots, damn it.
This is true. They're easy to pick on, kind of like politicians and people in.
No one picks on them more than I do. When you know them, then you really know what's going on. But anyway, congrats on all the success of the book. And I know I saw Chris Pratt himself with the shout out for the Amazon series. So the word is out there now. You're going to have the Jack Carr series on Amazon, Savage Son, True Believer, all the Terminal List books. So, all right, fantastic on that. Now let's drill down, now that everyone who hasn't already heard knows they need to buy or download your book on audio. Now we can talk about what went down here, man, in Venezuela. You got some former U.S. special operators, guys with real skill sets and real combat experience. They did what? I mean, give us the overview.
Oh, my goodness. So diving into this thing, just what a mess from start to finish. And not even start to finish, but before the lead up, as far as not specific to this operation, but just their mindset in doing anything, it seems. So you have this guy, Jordan Goudreau. I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly, originally from Canada. Apparently he served in the U.S. Army from 2001 to 2016. And when someone gets out with a couple of years left, it's always a bit of a red flag. So I don't know what's going on there exactly. But at some point, I think he went to 18 Delta training with Army Special Forces. So for those listening, that's a medic training, very well-trained guys. And then got out and did some private contracting in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, which a lot of people I know did as well. They went down there to help. And then after the Parkland shooting in Florida, wanted to get into school security side of the house and put together a plan to embed special operators in schools around the country. That didn't really take off. And then he started this thing called Silver Corp, which looks like a wannabe Blackwater, with some pictures on there and some very strange video of him at a Trump rally pretending to be a Secret Service agent, if I'm not mistaken, with the earpiece in, and had somebody there taking the video that then went up on site that didn't say he was really protecting Trump, but certainly gave the impression that he was protecting the president in an official capacity. And then in February 2019, he went down to Colombia and worked security at a Live Aid concert to raise money for the opposition and for the Venezuelan opposition party. And apparently that's where this plan was hatched, to put together a band of mercenaries and deserters from the Venezuelan army and do some sort of an invasion of Venezuela and abduct the current president and fly him off to parts unknown.
Wait, so you mentioned the Live Aid concert. So this guy's actually, he's doing security. Now, he was an SF guy, so and as you said, he was a medic. I mean, he had the skill set, so he's not some weekend warrior soldier of fortune guy who's like been to a SIG training academy thing for 2 days and now thinks that he understands these things, right? Not that those academies aren't great, they are, but you know what I mean. I mean, he actually served. He goes to do the security for Richard Branson at a Live Aid concert. And basically, he's at this concert and they're talking to people. And it's like, let's do our own version of the Bay of Pigs, except in Venezuela, not Cuba. We're going to do a snatch and grab with Nicolas Maduro, who does have a $15 million U.S. bounty on his head. So there's real cash here, and also has been oppressing his people. And as we all know, Venezuela has just devolved into anarchy, chaos, starvation, and just a complete mess. But the guy certainly understands security, because he understands that his rule is with an iron fist and not with the consent of the people anymore. So then what happens after? So they hatch the plan. Then what goes down?
So I think there's a few months there. We're not exactly sure what's happening, but by late summer, by August, he's now trying to get some investors. So instead of that $15 million after the fact from the U.S. government that you may or may not get, depending on what happens, he's looking for some upfront money, $213 million from investors in this country. And apparently one of the Kraft heirs was not really involved, but at least listened to the pitch, from what my understanding is, and then didn't support it, apparently. But this guy, Jordan Goudreau, goes ahead and somehow makes his way down to Colombia and starts working with these deserters. And another fascinating character is a former Venezuelan general who is now in custody in New York awaiting trial for selling surface-to-air missiles for cocaine to some of these deserted groups in Colombia. It's a crazy cast of characters that I'm sure will be made into some sort of a movie at some point along the line.
They said that the JW Marriott, where these guys all met up initially in Bogota, Colombia, was described by the Associated Press as a center of intrigue among Venezuelan exiles. But for this occasion, where Goudreau met with these guys, conference rooms were reserved for what one participant described as the Star Wars summit of anti-Maduro goofballs. Military deserters include accused of drug trafficking, shady financiers, and former Maduro officials seeking redemption. Wow.
Oh, it's so great. You almost can't make it up. It's so great. I mean, if it didn't end so poorly for everybody, it would almost be comical, like Delta Farce, that movie or something like that. But it did actually remind me of the beginning of Invasion USA, for those who saw that in the mid-'80s, where they have an invasion of this country by a band of, anyway, Chuck Norris destroys them all. It's great. But that's what I thought of when I saw the video. There's a lot of video out there. You can go online and check it out. But apparently there were 2 landing sites in Venezuela, one where 8 people were killed, and the majority of the rest.
So this is execution now. This is the execution phase of the plan, what they try to do. Sorry, keep going.
No, but even before that, we should probably jump back really quick and talk about how there were some weapons and equipment that were intercepted by the Colombian government at some point. And so Venezuela knew what was going on here. They knew something was in the works, not just something, but they knew that an invasion was imminent to overthrow the current president, and they were ready and waiting. So 2 beach landing sites, one of them where we have 8 people killed and the rest of the people, or most of them anyway, arrested. And then there's another beach landing site where the 2 Americans, it looks like anyway, another beach landing site where daylight, a couple of fishing boats that don't look very seaworthy, and where a lot of the video of our 2 other Army Special Forces guys are arrested, along with some of the other invaders, mercenaries, deserters, or whatever you want to call them. So there's some video out there that's not very flattering, and it also shows tremendous restraint, I thought, on the side of the Venezuelan government and police and military forces, because they could have just mowed everybody down, like in the Bay of Pigs. So, but they didn't. They just killed eight people and are currently searching for, I think, 92 others right now. So Jordan Goudreau is still, my understanding, is still out there somewhere. And in the middle of all this, he does a video tweet with a Venezuelan captain from the National Guard talking about what's going on, that they're almost doing a play-by-play of what's happening. And they tag President Trump's Twitter account on this. So, I mean, it's just fascinating. The whole thing is absolutely incredible. So now he has 2 of his buddies, SF guys, are detained in Venezuela, probably not the best place to be detained, where we have no official relations right now. There's no embassy there to help work on their release. So we have these 2 guys that are in custody, that are being interrogated, of course, and we have the president of Venezuela with their passports, reading it off on the news and being able to, or at least his people, say, hey, look, we have the United States officially involved in trying to invade our country. We prevailed over the invaders, and kind of rally some nationalism around him, which probably helps him after what's been going on in his country for the past few years, with everyone starving, no medical supplies, treatment, that sort of thing. So it is just a mess.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the best way to describe it.
Definitely a mess. I mean, this was a. Go ahead, Jack. Go ahead.
I was going to say, President Kennedy. So the Bay of Pigs wasn't a brainchild of the Kennedy administration. It was hatched by the Eisenhower administration. So Kennedy actually inherited that plan. And what he said in the lead up, although it was too late really to do much about it, was that it seemed too large to be clandestine and too small to be successful. So that's one of the parallels that we can look at when we're looking at this, which may be inspired by something like that. But what you really need in a situation like this is a whole of government approach and an invasion of, like, a 1989 invasion of Panama. Even though we're essentially going after one person in that, Manuel Noriega, we brought a whole of government approach, obviously very heavy on the military side of the house, and an invasion rather than some deserters.
So I want to ask you about this part of it, because I feel like a lot of the audience will be thinking, okay, so these guys thought they could pull this off. Some of them did have a real military skill set. A lot of these other guys, it seemed like they're just kind of in the mix for whatever reason. But I want to ask, and just for everybody, we're talking to Jack Carr, author of the Terminal List series. His new book out right now is Savage Son. I am listening to it. It is excellent, and you guys should all download it as well. Chris Pratt will be playing the main character in the Amazon series, which Jack has promised me will be better than the Jack Ryan series, which made the, granted, handsome and intelligent CIA analyst look good, but the rest of the series was terrible in the second season. So Jack says this. I know he doesn't like to say that because he's working with Amazon now. That's fine. You can plead the fifth. I'm just saying the second season I did not approve. I'm never getting a deal with Amazon. Anyway, let me ask you about what if you were presented back to this situation in Venezuela, if you were presented with this plan, what would have been the initial? And look, now we've seen how it went wrong, but what would have been the flags where you're like, if you guys are going to pull off a coup, you got no chance because of the following?
Well, there's so much to work with there, and I feel a little bit bad about picking it apart from here, from afar, especially when we have U.S. Former military guys that are in custody down there. But I mean, just a background of what's going on here by looking at that Silvercorp site and looking at what was copy and pasted from the Department of Homeland Security site, looking at that kind of fake video of this guy pretending to protect Trump at a rally, and some of the background there saying that they've advised that there are 50 countries around the world and have advised units like Delta Force and the SAS. Like, right away, there's some red flags there when you're looking at a leadership from the leadership type perspective. Like, who's leading this thing? This essentially a fly-by-night corporation that was thrown up ad hoc, it looks like. And then some of those things that those of us who have been in special operations would look at and say, this just doesn't add up here. Throw this thing together, 50 countries around the world, this weird video that's out there just doesn't make sense. So there's that from the get-go. And then you have to look at this thing as, hey, look at the history here. So we can go back to the 1953 coup in Iran. Okay, we have some lessons learned out of that. We kind of got what we wanted for a while out of it, although we're still dealing with the repercussions of that today. We have Bay of Pigs. We can learn a lot from that as well. And we have something like and then we get more specific to this area of the world, and we look at the invasion of Panama in 1989, and we see something that worked. We got the guy that we were after. We have some lessons learned from that as well. And then we look at all that stuff holistically, and plus what we learned in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we look at that and apply it to this situation, and it looks like none of the lessons from any of these things were applied if they really wanted to go in there, wanted to overthrow the government, wanted to essentially abduct the president and then take him to parts unknown to maybe collect this $15 million from the U.S. government. That part's unclear. I
mean, if you had, and this is not just in the theoretical space, right? So we understand. So you're saying, look, these guys, they didn't think it through. They didn't have the lessons learned even from previous incursions into Latin America or other coups involving either U.S. or other international personnel. So they didn't really do the homework on it from that respect. You said that you either want to be lean and mean, small and quiet, or you want to just do what you said, Panama, like we're going all in, we're going to get one guy, but we're going to control the battle space and then get this one guy instead of trying to sneak in the back door here. You know, a snatch and grab like that. If you were trying to write for a novel, and Jack's a former Navy SEAL, as you all know, but if you were trying to write for a novel here, you know, how would would this be a dozen guys, 20 guys, if they had the right intel? How could this work out in the real world? You know what I mean? If you were wargaming it, if you were trying to do a snatch and grab, not a hit, right? We don't do that. If you're trying to do a snatch and grab, take this guy back to the U.S. to face justice, what would that look like?
Well, that's, I think, what the problem is. They looked at it through the lens of someone like me who is now writing fiction instead of the lens of someone who is actually planning these things in real life, either at the CIA or the military or whatever else. So it looks like someone like me sat down and thought, well, what would be a great way to come
a great
up with something for
storyline,
a novel?
Yeah.
What's that?
A great storyline. Yeah, it's what it sounds like.
Exactly. So, yeah, in real life, you either hit them hard, full U.S. government approach, you dominate that battle space, like you said, grab your guy like we did with Noriega, take him back for trial. Okay, that's one way. The other way to do something like this in real life is through long-term covert action penetration programs that your former employers are more familiar with. So you're not putting some guys in ninja suits, sneaking through the streets of the capital of a country to go essentially to their White House to snatch the president and then get him to an airfield and fly him off in what kind of an aircraft to where? No, we have some lessons learned here. And what you would really do is activate those deep penetration agents, and you would either it's assassination type thing, or you have people ready to go to step up and to essentially arrest, like an actual coup, and arrest the president for doing things that are illegal, and put him in prison and probably try him in that country.
Right.
So
work within the existing battle space in some capacity, either personnel who understand what's really going on. It seems like that was, I mean, it seems like this was in many ways for them an intelligence failure, intelligence victory, unfortunately, for the Maduro government because they saw it coming a mile away. But knowing stuff in advance certainly helps. But man, if you're looking for some fodder for a book down the line, this certainly will provide it. Jack Carr, everybody, check out the latest that he's got in the Terminal List series, Savage Son, which you hear me talking about on the show because I am, in fact, listening to it, and it's great. Mr. Jack Carr, congrats again. I want a signed, Jack Carr / Chris Pratt Savage Son book, all right? One day.
Absolutely. Done.
All right, man. Thanks so much for joining us. Good to talk to you.
You too. Take care.
Man, I really enjoyed getting to talk to Jack Carr about that stuff. He's a great guy. I'm so happy that his book is doing so well, and I'm sure that series that's going to have Chris Pratt. I think Chris Pratt's been fantastic in leading roles now, and I loved him in Parks and Rec back in the day. But we have Jesse Kelly coming up. Stay with me.